Welcome back to this episode of Uncover the Human. We are joined by two guests today, Dr. Sean Dixon and Megan Blythe, who are the company runners of Simply Tiny. Simply Tiny is a sustainability-focused business, and they're here to talk to us a little bit about that, about how that influences their overall business and strategy. And we'd love to welcome Sean and Megan to the show. Welcome, guys.
Hey, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
So we've known Sean for just a little bit, but it's a super interesting business model. Sean, do you want to just dive right in? You'll give a better pitch than I would. What are you guys doing? What's up?
I definitely can do that. So we are a sustainable development company. We do all things tiny. So we took a couple of different ideas here. One was tiny homes, and then the other one was camper vans. We kind of put them together and then dropped sustainability in the center of all that. And now we have this whirlwind of a business that is growing pretty quickly and in a lot of different areas, and we're really enjoying it.
And you're in one of your vans right now, right? That's the background?
Yeah. This is a picture from the last van that we did. This was Voyager 1. I threw that up there because it looks way cooler than me sitting in my office.
Looks pretty awesome.
Thank you.
Would definitely recommend anybody who's listening on audio to check out at least the screenshot, if not the YouTube, because it's a beautiful looking van. Got a nice interior in it. That's really nice.
I appreciate it.
Great view in the background.
Not bad. If I can move, it's actually Boulder. So if you guys
wow.
Nice.
Flat irons.
Well, that's a great shot. That is a beautiful looking van. So I'm curious, like the van life has been getting, of course, it's like its own Instagram tag at this point, van life, but tiny homes are also growing. What led you guys to dig into tiny homes and all things tiny?
Yeah, so we kind of took a look at a lot of different things. And throughout my doctoral studies, a lot of it was in organizational development, and a lot of it kind of focused on the way that we are treating people and how burnout is becoming very prevalent. Obviously, the issues with climate change and things like that kind of pop up as well too. But looking at how to sustain people and build better organizations through business. That was kind of the inception of the idea of kind of taking everything that I learned or the things that I was seeing throughout all of this. You know, you do a little bit of reading in a doctoral program. It's not too much, but you tend to pick up on some high level trends. And one of them was how business was actually contributing to the large scale societal problems that we were seeing, really in climate change. You know, if we're just driving shareholder profits and things like that, you know, we're not taking a look at all the other factors that are involved in this completely connected world. So, coming out of my doctoral program, I looked at, okay, what I really want to do with my life. And I said, okay, I think I'm best suited, me personally, to start some type of company where we can start changing these high level problems around people, the way organizations are run. And then hopefully we can take this towards a global scale and maybe start influence some climate change initiatives or something like that. And real estate and construction are very much drivers of the things that we're seeing. Construction is extremely wasteful. You know, we do a ton of damage to the environment and the earth. All the materials that we use, they're not really built to last. It's built around fashion trends. You know, every 7 years you rehab a house to keep up with what is going on. So we kind of said, all right, let's check out, see what we can do. And then understanding that the world population is growing very rapidly, and we have to start preparing for a planet that is going to be able to hold 9 billion people. And you know, right now we're using, I think it's 1.5 to 2 times the worldly resources that we actually have on Earth. And obviously, if you don't have to be an economist to understand that, we're going to run out. So we kind of said, all right, what can we do? And kind of formed Simply Tiny. We originally looked at yurts and things like that, which didn't really work out too well in the area. There was just too many restrictions and code changes, and ultimately it wasn't sustainable itself because the structures had to be replaced every 15 years. There was a lot of waste that went into it. So we started looking at tiny homes, and that's where we kind of found our niche with this whole thing, saying, okay, we can take higher quality materials, use less, and build an overall better product that is going to serve the needs of the people right now and then generations down the road. And then following that, we kind of realized that the vans were essentially the exact same things, functionality, they're just moving. So we went ahead and jumped to that space as well too, so we could kind of put them together and overlap and build multidisciplinary competencies with a business.
I love how you started with, you know, the crisis, the burnout crisis of humans, and, you know, focusing on how do we address the higher level and all the aspects of treating people better, taking care of people, what does that look like? Especially since, clearly we're not passionate at all about better treatment of humans at work and in life. So that definitely resonates with us, but it's such a much larger piece. It's not just about, here's a paycheck, here's, a semi-nice chair sort of in your office, here that
Right.
gives you a backache only after 6 hours, not 8. And a few benefits here and there, some chips in the kitchen. Like it's way larger than that. It is about how we live, where we live, what happens to the stuff. And even the piece about how everything is made to last for 7 years reminds me of the fact that our washing machine died this week. It's about 5 to 6 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, that is there. We live very much in a consumerist economy, where things they're not made to last. Business models are built on repeat customers. How fast can we have something break and then have them buy something that is equal or higher value in the shortest amount of time? There's no recycling operations or anything like that. And with housing, we can definitely make a difference through that space because they're not going anywhere. We always need houses. So the longer a house lasts and the more educated people are about how to maintain their homes and they start taking pride in those things, then we can really start lowering the cost of living and influencing maybe some of the climate change things that we're kind of seeing right now, and just basically reducing, our footprint on the earth and making it better for everyone across the scale, multi-generational down the road.
Something I hadn't really thought of, that pride and ownership. I mean, you've got a great looking van there, but that's a great way of getting people to especially take care of it just themselves, as well as wants to do more of these things. That's a really great point. How did this kind of build into, you talked a little bit about like the burnout. You've talked about how some of the sustainability, this I assume is also a little bit expanded during COVID, where we got a little more options to do remote or a little bit more in various locations. How did that play in for you guys over the last year?
It definitely did. And it helped and it hurt the exact same time. It hurt because we completely lost the inventory and building materials and commodities went through the roof. Like that was, for us to build sustainable homes, that are decent, was very, very challenging. So we had to kind of scale back our operations a little bit for the year. But as far as it goes, it set people free in a lot of ways. Even though we were quarantined, we changed the way that we could actually work, which, at this point now were we close to 2 years throughout the pandemic now or something like that. We've moved into the transformation phase. It's not a change anymore. It's a transformation. We will never go back to the original ways that we were doing things. There might be some things that would kind of maybe mimic what we saw before. And this is totally my opinion on all of this, but your higher level, your top talents and things like that, they know what it's like to have freedom. They're not confined to a desk anymore. They can do everything remote. They can travel and still produce, high quality outputs throughout everything. And van life was one of the ways that people could actually do that. We have some major technological advances through Starlink and all the internet connectivity and everything that we're seeing. So they can just hop in a van, still work remotely, throw a nice little background like this up on here, and everybody's happy. So the demand for van life really has increased. And we didn't see it, not so much in the RV space, not that we were monitoring that, but van life is very, very cool. It's low impact and you can get a lot out of one thing. It's not like you need to go buy a truck and trailer and tow an RV around or get a giant motorhome to live. I think people really realize that by reducing the amount of things that you have, you can really enrich the quality of your life, which I don't think a lot of people have really looked at that before, especially with that consumerism economy where it's more is better, more. But when you reduce things, you reduce just the stuff that's sitting around. You also reduce the mental clutter that you have, which kind of leads into, this is kind of just a better life for me. I enjoy what I do. I can focus. I'm not spread around in 50 different directions. And I think people kind of see the value of a pure focus and concentration in their lifestyles now.
It's really a good way of looking at it. It is definitely a nice reduction. It's like you have like that lack of clutter. It's a lot easier to focus on stuff. It's a lot easier to get just into living. And then obviously in a van, you can take that wherever. And nowadays you can attach Wi-Fi to vans. And I'm sure that's what you guys are doing as well. I'm curious, Megan, what brought you into this?
He had to use my lawnmower. we were
Tale as old
neighbors
as time, really.
we were neighbors, and that's just how we met. And it just clicked from the start. I am still in school for environmental science. I'm actually graduating in December.
Ooh, congratulations.
But yeah, so then he was like, oh, I have a company and this is what we do. And I was like, oh, yes, please. Like, I want all parts of that. And I just kind of started helping out when I could. And I came on full time in July. I think that's right. Yeah, July. And it just kind of flourished from there.
That's
so
awesome.
Talking about sustainability, that noise that you guys, do you guys hear it?
Or is it I heard it. I don't know what that was.
Okay. It's like the first time around, I flinched because I thought my roof just collapsed behind me. And I was like, what just happened? And no, it's our next door neighbors have a huge dumpster because they're redoing their bathroom. So it's perfect timing.
Oh, as we're talking about rehabs. Yeah,
exactly.
So you guys do sustainability, you build bands. What are just, I don't know, some pride points or something that's been particularly interesting that have been like ways to source sustainable goods or ways to think about building things sustainably? What are some cool insights you've had just over the whole journey doing this?
Well, there's so many good answers to that question. And for a little bit, and I'll follow with her.
It's just it's so much research. And like that's probably what turns people off the most is that they have to invest a lot of their time in it. It's not just like clicking a button and saying like, oh, here's this label and it says it's sustainable. Sure, let's get that one. A lot of stuff is being greenwashed now. So even though it's like, oh, it's made out of recycled plastic, it comes in this massive box filled with plastic or, packing peanuts. And it's like, well, that completely defeats the purpose. So, I mean, I think that's a really big pride point for us is the fact that we are doing that research and saying, not only is the product that we're using sustainable, but where we're getting it from and our supply chain is even more sustainable. So, we can't tackle these problems by ourselves. It's, him and I aren't going to be the two people that solve climate change. It's going to be all of us as a collective. So really supporting others who are doing these, actions as well is where it's really going to make a difference and actually start changing things.
That's a very good point. How does this translate into how you just run the business and who you work with, the people side of things?
Yeah, I personally love Indigenous communities, and that's kind of something that I'm bringing into this as well, is, wanting to work with companies who are run by Indigenous individuals, working in areas that are, high population of Indigenous communities. And then, also just supporting those different classes and smaller businesses instead of purchasing items from bigger corporations, supporting the small guys.
Yeah, and a couple other things we had to do was we first started off, so we're pursuing our B Corp certification. So we kind of tacked that on there, and Meg is spearheading and leading us towards that end goal, which is, it's definitely tough to get to, especially in the construction space, because again, the amount of waste and things that go into it. So we kind of started off like, all right, let's take this one step at a time, inch by inch. Like, where can we really start making a difference quickly and start influencing others? And that always starts with ourselves. So we're heavily dependent on personal development, and both of us have plans that we walk through, and we're continually trying to find goals and better ourselves, because ultimately, if we can't change ourselves, we're not going to change anything else. That's where it all starts. We have to be able to inspire, to influence, and show people that there's a better way. And a lot of times that is painful. We are foregoing larger profits to spread it around two other domains. And the structure that we took with the company is a public benefit LLC with a B Corp certification on top of that. So that, as far as business development goes, I think, from as far as I know, is about as sustainable as you can possibly get. as far as like certification and then the actual legal structure behind it. So we are a triple bottom line focused company. So taking things just from a profit driving standpoint and putting them into two other facets is very, it's challenging and it's fun because it takes a lot of energy to do that. Our meetings are a little bit longer because we have to question two other things besides driving profits. Mm-hmm. How does this impact the earth, and how is this going to impact the community that we're in? And then us as individuals, there's a lot of discussions that go on about those types of things. And the pride point I think that I would pull up for this whole thing is how we handle paradoxes in sustainability, because that is exactly what it is. You do one thing, you hurt something else. Which one is better? How do we handle that? So our decision-making and our problem-solving processes are really being honed down in a lot of ways. And it's a ton of trial and error. There's no right way to do something. And Meg has a pretty good example with her van and everything that we're kind of doing right now that she can kind of touch on if she would like, of how we just work through what is here now versus what we have to create in the future, and what is better for the planet and everybody right now and then down the road.
Yeah, I'm going to be doing van life here in the future. I'm actually going to get my van on the 13th. Mm-hmm. And I had this, okay, do I get a brand new van or that's more sustainable, or do I get, more sustainable, or do I get an older van and I'm creating less waste? I'm not getting a brand new van that has to go through the production line, that has to, be a whole new product that is eventually going to need to be thrown away, whether it's in 10 years or 30 years. So I decided that I would be going with an older vehicle to cut back on the waste. And with that, the older vehicle is a diesel engine. Mm-hmm. So that ultimately is going to be, the diesel isn't great, but I'm also going to be doing a different type of van life that's a little bit different than, the typical, you're traveling the whole country and you never stop unless it's for a week or two. I'm going to have a home base. So even though my van is diesel, I'm not going to be driving it anywhere near as much as the average van life person. So that's kind of how I made the decision of like, this is definitely the more sustainable choice for my situation. Whereas someone else who's going to be doing van life, more sustainable for them might be, if they're going to be traveling constantly, it might be getting an electric van. So that was my take on it.
Definitely extra layers of considerations.
It's so much. It's not black and white ever. Ever. And the definition of sustainability is going to evolve and change completely over time. And we're going to every day have to change how we're viewing that aspect of sustainability, and what we think is sustainable, someone else might not, and it's more going to be where, you have to look at it and say, okay, this is why. It's not you're wrong and I'm right. It's some person the other day mentioned to us that she was like, I can't get away from Ziploc bags. I'm like, dude, Ziploc bags are great. Like, don't get me wrong, they're great. But like, maybe you can do all of these other things to counter that one bad habit that you have, or try taking a mason jar one day for like one item instead of a Ziploc. Like, don't try and just cut it out. It's like telling me to stop eating meat tomorrow. It's hard. You can't just stop and go on a whole different path within a day. So it's taking those, little steps and doing it over time. And that's where you're actually going to be able to see the difference.
It's a really good point of just general incremental change, because that's something that they highlight when they talk about things like, especially climate sustainability. They have to talk about factory farming, and just generally eating meat is such a costly endeavor when it comes to resources and how much it takes to actually get that to you. And so like being a vegetarian or trying to move towards vegetarianism tends to be one of the greater things you can do in terms of like personal carbon foot impact reduction, I guess. And so I like the way you put that, because that's definitely something I feel like helps people ease the transition a lot. And I like that you guys have taken a much more, it seems like, nuanced approach to like, yeah, this thing might be sustainable, this is going to be non-sustainable in a different way. But I think it helps because of that transition period. If you insist like, well, Ziploc bags are bad, so never use Ziploc bags, it's going to be met with a lot more resistance than, all right, we'll see if, you can cycle out liquids or, fruits will just be in mason jars this week or something, and see you just set the habit slowly change instead of, the general like New Year's resolution type of change where just one day you decide you're going to go to the gym every day from now on.
Yeah,
exactly.
It really works out.
Or it's like even with eating meat, I live in North Carolina. I'm on the coast. I'm not necessarily going to be buying fish constantly. I'm going to go to the beach and catch it myself. I'm personally trying to cut back on where I'm sourcing meat and just different types of food like that, because, if it's getting transported to me, that's even more of an issue. But, I have friends who are duck hunters or, farmers, and I get most of my meat from them, or I will get it from a smaller business. Smaller business, they're probably going to be sourcing more locally. So it's just figuring out what works for you and like what works in your area too. Because obviously if you're not by an ocean, you can't just go and catch your food.
Very true. It's kind of funny because Italy is definitely a little more undemocratic when it comes to changes like that. They definitely go with the cold turkey approach for the whole country. 60 million people. So when they banned plastic bags, for example, in shops, in place of, and they replaced them with mostly what they call recyclable bags, which they supposedly dissolve with the compost. So that's what you use for any food items. You put them in these bags that will dissolve with the compost because they're made of that. It was overnight. It was pretty much like, okay, as of Monday, and you've got 24 hours, no more plastic bags in shops. This is what you use.
I love that.
Well, honestly, when people don't have a choice, they don't complain. They're like, okay, got it.
Well, and that's also not necessarily a habit that you're trying to break of someone's. That's just like they get groceries in a bag and they just take it.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's like instead of putting plastic bags in a store, you just put the paper ones. Yeah. No one's going to think anything of it. It's going to be more when you're like, we don't sell Ziploc bags anymore.
Yes.
That people are going to be like, but what do I do? Yeah. I don't understand how to function without this material. Or like plastic water bottles. If we randomly just decided to stop selling plastic water bottles, people would freak out.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the Scandinavian countries has done that recently.
Yeah, probably.
But France or somebody just banned all plastic bottles.
Yeah, but even then, like in Italy, water is way more accessible. You're walking around and there's like a beautiful fountain that you can just drink out of. Yeah. Here, that's not a thing. So it's like, it's such a like ultimatum all the time.
So you guys have been refining the process of trying to decide which sustainability choices to make, both for yourselves, for your business. Have you started to systemize any of that? Does it feel like there's patterns that you can start to reuse in some of these decisions, or is it so relentlessly contextual that it ends up being just new every time?
Another good question. Right now, I think we're starting to get better in the fact that we're training our brains to work faster to get to the decision versus something actually that's emergent every single time, because like Meg said, it's never black and white. You could argue it for days if you really wanted to. But you could just go back and forth and pull up a million different scenarios and never come to a conclusion. I think it kind of is just boiling down to what best aligns with us as a company, as a brand, our mission, and what impact we want to make. The closest thing to that is probably what we're going to go with. As far as decision making goes. So we've really dropped it down a lot, especially with Meg and I working together all the time now. We're starting to learn how one another thinks. If there's an angle that one of us isn't seeing, the other one can bring it up without any fear of judgment or retribution or something like that. Like, no, that was actually something I completely did not see. And that's kind of a large impact on somebody that I didn't even recognize. So and I think it comes down to us trusting one another as well and the other people in the company. which is we have very specialized positions. We always backfill one another. We're a very fluid, flat organization, but we understand one another's jobs enough, but respect one another enough to realize that is your specialty and you probably have the best answer to it. So unless I can counter with a major argument, we're just going to go with what the other person is going to be the best. And that's all we're trying to do, is just do the best that we possibly can and recognize that we are not perfect, and invite as many other people in on the conversation as we possibly can to find the best answer or the best solution for what we're trying to accomplish.
You mentioned a little, I think, before we even started recording, that you guys are looking to bring more people on full time. How does that look when you're going to be having these sustainability debates and discussions with now larger groups of people? What's your feeling when you're going into bringing people on?
Yeah, very, very specific. The personality, the traits, and the way we screen for the little mini culture that we do have right now, as far as Meg and I, and then our builder, who's not on full time, he's a contractor at this point, but just pitching to them and making sure that we start with their purpose. That's kind of how we started screening. Is I'm not going to ask you interview questions about your skills or something like that. Tell me who you are. Tell me what your purpose is in life, and let's see if that fits. Because ultimately, if we really want to motivate people, and we want to have a long-term sustainable organization, that energy needs to be maintained, and they need to be expressing that, driving towards their purpose. And the business itself needs to be remodeled to allow people to see their purpose through it and use it as a way to get to that purpose. So if they expand far beyond Simply Tiny, great. We will help you get as far as you want to go, because we do not want to limit your impact or your ability to do anything that you want to do in this world. And if we're not big enough and you have the skills or the abilities to do something larger, please bypass us. Just give us a cool handshake and maybe a shout out on Instagram on the way through. It's not anything crazy. And that's kind of how we've approached those types of things, and to stay lean and to understand one another very, very deeply. So we don't have to have a larger organization where, oh, that's Bob, I don't know anything about him. We have to be able to stay tight like that, especially with the triple bottom line focus at the inception of the company, because we're not generating larger profits that we probably could be with everything. So keeping the right people in the right place for as long as possible, reducing any type of turnover. Obviously, you guys know better than anybody else how expensive turnover is and how time consuming it is. So applying our basic principles to homes and vans and everything else, which is, find the best people, find the best materials, find the best of everything, and then develop it. Help them develop, give them a channel to reach their full potential. And that should, in theory, keep everything in place and the wheels greased and everything moving smoothly. But it has to be the right person who understands what we're doing and really sees the larger vision of what this could be, and can make some short-term sacrifices for some long-term gains.
Talk about lack of sustainability as a turnover in companies. It's the ultimate lack of sustainability.
It's painful.
It's very painful. Yes. And actually, I just posted a LinkedIn article yesterday or the day before. It was I can't remember. I think it was an HBR, Husband's Business Review articles that I was sharing. But it was literally about how to lose your best employees. And is to do the opposite of what you're doing, which is to focus on their skills and box them in, and then expect them to be happy doing the same thing for the next 20 years, instead of focusing on their purpose, understanding what that is, and then giving them the space and the resources and whatever they need to grow and understand their growth and pattern and how it changes, so that they can, if it's time for them to go, it's time to go. If it's a different role, it's a different role, but without silent boxing them in.
Exactly.
Yeah, and just to kind of touch on that and bring back in getting burnt out. My work week is 4 days a week. I'm working max 6 hours a day, but I'm so productive in those 6 hours and those 4 days a week. And Sean has allowed me to build my position into whatever I want it to be. And so with that, I'm like, oh, I have all these ideas, and I'm bringing a different aspect to the position that somebody else may not have thought of, or, we're able to live our lives outside of our job as well, which then when you are at work, you're happier, and you're able to bring a different perspective and a brighter perspective, because I'm going to the beach every morning before I, clock in and start working, or I'm able to cook a really nice breakfast. I'm not like, oh, I have to be at work in 5 minutes. I can make some nice eggs and, have my coffee on a porch swing and, maybe go do some yoga midday and then come back and work the rest of the day. So it's a different aspect of sustainability with like your actual self and your soul.
That's a really good way of putting it as well. Just that, for one, I actually just heard from Vox.com. They just, or I guess Vox is a larger company, but they're also a magazine. But they just went to 4-day work weeks. Like officially, the whole company is going to do 4-day work weeks. They kind of looked into it, and there was no real reason to settle on 40-hour work weeks. That's no optimal time. It's in fact pretty non-optimal. Nobody actually works 40 hours a week, which is one of the reasons that 4-day work weeks work fine. Because that's about the amount of time you actually get stuff done. But to your point, Megan, it ends up being like, because I have this extra time, now I'm fulfilling all the other pieces of life, way easier to engage in my role. And it sounds like it's also a much more flexible role, which is necessary when you're a small company, especially since there's going to be so many different things to cover. You get that creativity and you can do it in less time. I mean, there's not a downside to this. It's a much better and more efficient way of doing this, again, sustainable.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious, and this one will dive slightly deeper, but you talked about your interview process being asking people what their purpose is. And I'm curious from you guys what your answers would be about what your purpose is and what you feel like your place is, either life-wise or even within the company.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really tough for a lot of people to kind of find and describe. A lot of them are very surface level, and it takes a little bit of time to actually think about what you can do. And it's an inventory of the self. What's the one thing I do the best with the least amount of effort, right? Mm-hmm. Learn. I consume massive amounts of information. It's my gift. It's the thing that I can kind of do. I try to read 52 books a year, one a week, and up that every single year. And then I sit and I think a lot. And I said, okay, I have some decent leadership skills as well too. My vision is pretty good in the way that I can put patterns together and see farther down the road and kind of navigate things. I said, starting a company, would it be a bad idea? and maybe kind of lead the sustainability revolution and things that we're going to see down the road. The boomers are retiring. It's our time as a generation to step up and take the reins. And I'm a millennial, elder millennial, I believe is the term now. You get
the elder status?
I'm 88, so I don't know what the range is, but elder millennial said, okay, we have a lot of challenges as a generation. There's no doubt. We've seen a lot of things that can either be looked at in a positive light or in a very negative light, to America's longest wars, 2001, 2008, a pandemic. And we're only 30. We're not even halfway through this game yet. I don't know what's in store for us down the road, but we got a lot left. And we can choose to be victims, or we can choose to take our futures into our own hands and do something about it. And these events, while they are tragic and terrible in a lot of ways, can really build a generation of resiliency if we take it that route. And I think at this point, the generation needs new ways of doing things, new ways of work, and a company that is willing to do that and show everybody that there's a better way to do all of it. And we don't have to adopt the things in the past. We don't have to do any of that. We can continue to create our futures and drive exactly where we want to go and take back that power that I think we've lost a little bit over the years in a lot of ways. So I said, all right, I think I'm up to that kind of challenge. It's who am I going to have to become to do that? And then I kind of set off on that journey, just filed an LLC and just went for it.
Awesome. Yeah. There's a huge need to just take the old ways and not follow them. There's no rule that we have to follow that. And clearly, they're not all successful, or we wouldn't be where we are.
No, and conventional wisdom gets you conventional results.
Yes.
I don't like doing things really conventionally. So
Pretty sure that's how we bonded the first 5 minutes of our conversation. I was like, yeah, I can relate to this guy.
So, and then kind of touching on Meg, when I always like to tell this story because I think it's very, very powerful, and it kind of displays who she is as a person. When she was living a couple of doors down from me, I went over there and borrowed their lawnmower, and we went over there one day, and I think we were drinking some adult beverages at that point, and I saw Meg. The music was louder, everybody's having a good time, and Meg's kind of sitting in the corner reading a textbook on environmental science or something like that. Like here it is, it's later in the afternoon, and all these people are having fun doing their thing, including myself, and she's in the corner studying. I said, okay, I don't think I could find a better person for this position who's going to be more dedicated to it, because this right here, if you're not distracted and want to join in or do something like that, and you're that focused on your passion and the thing that you need to do, which for her still is school, I think that's one of the most valuable things. And I could see the leadership potential in her just through her actions in that whole thing. And that's why I kind of was like, would you please?
Pretty please?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Megan, what's your purpose?
Mine has always been to just make an impact as big as it can be. And I've always had this like struggle of, do I make the impact with people or do I make it with the earth? And so my first degree is in psychology, second one with the earth. And so I'm still leaning to more of that environmental side, but I always just have this touch of like, no, I just want to help the less fortunate. So when Sean gave me the opportunity to be able to build my own position, I was like, you just solved all of my problems, because I have never been able to say, I've changed degrees a million times. I've changed career paths a million times of like what I want to do. And I was always stuck with like, I want to go in every direction, absolutely every direction. And so when Sean brought this position to me with the sustainability coordinator, I was like, oh my God, I can do it all. And so my like ultimate thing to really make a difference is helping underdeveloped countries after natural disasters, because we're fighting those natural disasters and they're increasing with intensity because of climate change. But I'm also getting that helping underdeveloped countries and the lesser fortunate. I'll retract that statement. Not even lesser fortunate, because some of the most happy people I've seen have been in Ghana, sweeping the streets, singing like beautiful songs in the morning, and they're just happy if they make $5 that day, so no, they aren't anywhere near less fortunate. I strongly stand by the fact that when I say that people in developed countries, sometimes they won't even get close to the happiness of those in a underdeveloped country, just because we have so many wants and needs and we just can't see the simplicity of life. So yeah, sorry, rant, but
good rant.
Yeah, that's my purpose, helping and being a part and developing my culture, the culture of myself, with the cultures of underdeveloped countries and communities and indigenous people, and then targeting it and helping that effect that climate change is having on them specifically, whether it's, sea levels rising or their rain seasons shortening or extending to the point where they can't grow crops because they're just getting waterlogged, or once they get hit by a tsunami, or, whatever the scenario is, being a first responder to them. And And I've kind of mentioned that to Sean, as later on in our Simply Tiny life, we can start doing some of that.
Can you imagine he'll say no?
It's on the goals list.
I won't let him. I won't let
America
him.
first.
That's definitely down the line. That's definitely down the line. And I'm in no rush because, like I said, we are becoming more sustainable, and therefore I will be able to do what I want to do far longer because I'm not getting burnt out. So whether it's in 5 years, 10 years, 30 years, I will be able to still be like as prime as I am now with my passion for it because I didn't get burnt out from the start.
Sustainable careers in sustainability. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It is. So what drains your energy?
Good question. When I'm not organized, I will tell you that when I'm not organized and when I sit in traffic, those two things get out of I have rearranged my life in Denver to hit the least amount of traffic possible. If I got to wake up at 3 a.m. to go do something, I will do it to not sit in traffic. So that's one of the big things. And yeah, just if I'm disorganized myself or my house is disorganized, then the rest of it kind of feeds off of that, and I get a little bit tired. Overworking isn't as much anymore. We've adopted the 4-hour or the 4-day work week, 6 hours. That's not always possible right now. So in doing so, it's the self-management with it all, and trying not to overthink on large scale problems, and really coming back to the personal development side and managing stress. If the stress isn't managed, then that's definitely an energy drainer. And then kind of increasing the amount of faith and the belief in the future, and not finding the negative and everything. Always find the positive. It doesn't matter how bad it is, find the positive, because the negative will just drag you down and it doesn't serve any purpose whatsoever. It can give you an objective look at reality, sure, but you should shift out of that pretty quickly and get back to where you need to be, because it's a life drain.
Megan, what about you?
That is a hard question. One of those questions like you don't ask yourself because you're scared of the answer. But just thinking about it, and this is going to sound very harsh coming off the bat, but I'll explain it, is like wasting time. Like people wasting my time, me wasting other people's time. It's not sustainable. It's not good for anyone. And what I'm meaning by wasting time is being true to yourself as well. You know, if something is posed to you and you're like, nah, I don't resonate with that at all, don't waste your time on it. You know, let the person know from the get-go, hey, that doesn't align with me, I'm gonna pass. And then you're saving everyone's time. I mean, someone, you know, had to say that to us, I think it was a week ago, where she was like, I don't know if I can work with you guys if you go down a certain route. We were like, we appreciate that. Thank you so much. You know, like, we will contact you when we can work with you on these things. And if it doesn't align with you, then we don't want to do that either, because we want you to be fulfilling your purpose, and our purpose is not your purpose. Yeah, that's probably one of them. And then I just take on everything at once. Everything, always. Like, I have a million things going on at the exact same time, and I want to solve all the problems and all of everyone else's problems all at the same time. And I'm pretty good at managing it most of the time. And then I'll have a day and I'm just like, anybody says anything to me and I'm just going to cry. But that's probably what drains me, is the fact that, like, sometimes I don't realize that I just need 2 seconds of quiet in my day. And to counter that, I've started doing tea ceremonies. It's a Japanese like style of sitting with tea, and it's an active meditation. So, because I can't sit still for an hour and not think of things. So it's just a form of active meditation that slows me down. So I can sit back and be like, wow, I don't have to fix the world today. It's okay if it works tomorrow. Like I don't have to do it all at once. But yeah,
It's good personal development realization.
ugh, it's scary.
Heavy. That's tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
The hardest work we will ever do is personal development ever.
Oh yes, yes. If we have the courage to face it.
If you have the courage. Yep. It is the hardest work you will ever do.
Too often people are like, nope, don't want to see it. I'm perfect the way I am. Everybody else needs to adapt.
It wasn't anything we explicitly stated, but you guys have done a great job of just kind of talking through some of your own personal development. And it's cool to see how that is tied into the development of this company, develop how your own personal goals, how you work, where you work, when you work. I mean, these are all really well tied in. We kind of ask people to make those connections directly, but you guys just kind of live them, and it's really fun to see.
Great. Yeah. Glad we could be easy.
Oh.
It's true. You've anticipated my next question. I'm like, she's answering. That's fine.
Do that well. Like, I know she's gonna ask me.
Yeah.
One thing I'm curious about, you guys have a great community orientation. You want to be able to help this. You want to be able to help yourselves develop your impact. To Megan, to your point, you want to develop a larger impact in what you're doing. I'm curious, and this is not to add things to your to-do list, since obviously in the beginning of anything, it's a massive to-do list and always adding. But I'm curious with some of your research and sustainability. One of the best parts about getting to use the internet is you can find other people's research. I'm wondering if you guys are developing ways to share some of your decision-making process and some of the sustainability reasoning that you've gone through. 'Cause I'd be super interested to read through it personally.
That is another great question. Actually, just talking about that is, how do we make a profit off our mistakes? That is what we need to do, because we make them on a daily basis, and it is very much trial and error. And as far as things go, we're starting to take that a little bit more seriously. I think once we bring these other people on and we kind of get out of this initial build phase that we are in, we are going to open up a consulting aspect of all of this, whether that be just for some type of homes or sustainability consulting. We might go into the business realm of it all, depending on how things go down the future. Meg is starting some blogs. Our Instagram, Simply Tiny Dev, is on there, and she's working on that pretty frequently to start updating some content and put out some best practices and best materials and things like that. I started working on a book that I'm just putting these lessons in. I don't know when that is going to be done, maybe 10 years down the road. I'm not really sure how many mistakes I'm going to have to make in order for it to be really valuable. I'm not, we'll get there. But yeah, those are some of the things that we're doing right now. We're trying to have a better media presence, but it's a little bit difficult, and always working with people like you is definitely the best way that we can kind of get our message out there and start reaching more people, because we can't do it alone. It's just impossible. There's just too much. We have to partner with as many like-minded people as we possibly can. And work together to get it done. And it's really just a large scale team effort, and respecting the pace of change and how time needs to flow and move in order for all the pieces to come together is really, really important.
Sounds like you'll have a series of books ready.
I don't know. We'll see.
Mistakes 1 through 15.
Yeah.
Volume 1.
Yeah. 1 to 10, 20 to 30. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just to add on top of that, it is going to be risky for us to be offering this information to others, because as far as I know, there's not another company like us. There might be, and we just haven't found them yet. But with the level of sustainability focus that we haven't found anybody. So we reach a very niche market, and, expanding that to other businesses and showing them how to reach that market as well. It's taking away our customers, ultimately. But the way we see it is that, we can't do this on our own. We, it's not going to be me and him. It's not going to be us. And if we hire 50 people to fix all the world's problems, it's going to be a collective and everyone working on it. So the more that we can expand our knowledge and get other people to be doing like-minded acts, that's going to be, the best way to expand that. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't know, just make it better for everyone else. And just making sure that we're putting the planet's needs before our greed, and really just allowing others to, maybe someone else sees what we're doing and they're like, oh man, let's do this too. Cool. Well, we just gave you this idea. Let's take your idea. And then let's just take it across the world.
Very infinite mindset.
Yeah.
Which is how sustainability actually it's going to happen.
Yeah. And I mean, we're not trying to be superheroes. We're literally just trying to be guides. So.
Yeah. It's amazing, though. You'll be surprised how many companies may want to take it and then still not use it. I mean, think of Elon Musk and the fact that he's given open source to Tesla specifications, and yet nobody has really taken that and done it well as he does. It's like, it's out there. It's not a secret. Why are you messing it up?
Yeah. I think you are your own competitive edge.
Yes.
Not another person like you. Nobody can think like you. Nobody can act like you. Nobody sees the world like you do. So giving it away, chances are if somebody does it better than you, then you should probably go have a conversation with them pretty quickly, because you're pretty much peers at that point, but everybody else, do the best they can with it, but it's not their own. So they can't use it in the way that you can, to maximize it. And that's kind of where we've taken it. And it's like, okay, we're going to blaze trails consistently. Like this is the way it's going to be. Just give it out. It doesn't matter. But we kind of know that really nobody can do it exactly like we can. And that's how we can kind of hold our competitive edge, and reduce the risks that are in business and stuff like that. We're a very generous company and a generous brand, but there's still competition. We still have to survive and we still have to thrive. Sometimes you got to throw some elbows in doing that. But I think for us to be leaders, that's just the style that we've adopted. And we said, okay, we're just going to push hard, never quit, and try and keep up with us. Here's all the information. You do it, great. We'll partner with you. And if you don't like us, great. We'll still partner with you. Tell us what's wrong. Show us our blind sides, and we'll figure it from there.
And you have a head start. So good luck. Good luck keeping up.
We're hoping so.
This is all incredibly interesting, just general business philosophy as well as sustainability, which is obviously an endless topic. So thank you guys so much for sharing these. It's incredibly fascinating to just kind of hear it lived out. Like I said, we really didn't even ask specific questions. You guys just led right to how this works into your life, and it's super interesting to see.
No, we appreciate it. Yeah, it was great. And thank you guys for having us on here. And this has been a ton of fun. It was awesome.
Yeah, thank you. You're welcome anytime.
Yeah. One thing we love to ask people, and we've kind of covered some of this when we talk about purpose and everything, but this is a little bit more like wide question. For each of you, what does authenticity mean to you?
Authenticity. Yeah. So being authentic, the first step in that is being transparent. So
that's
being
transparent
with there we go.
You can copy it. You can still be authentic and copy.
As a company, we know transparency is key. It has to be. If you want to be a sustainable company, you have to show people the good and you have to show people the bad, period. Yes, we still create waste. Yes, we still have some harmful things that happen. It's unfortunate, but again, we will partner with everybody else to help solve that problem, because we can't do it on our own. So yeah, the first piece of authenticity, I would say, is the transparency piece. And we try to go as far as we can to put as much out there, whether that's how much waste we're producing or how much we're recycling. We keep a balanced equation. So we're not going to give you all the good without giving you all the bad as well too, because it's still, when you solve one problem, you create one of equal or higher magnitude every single time. So the world will never be void of problems ever. There will never be a dirt. So in keeping that mindset and that philosophy, that's our first piece of it. And then just staying true to ourselves, and not deviating. There's a lot of hot buttons and touchy points in the world today, where a bad Instagram post can sink your company. One opinion or one bad tweet can do a lot of damage. So we had to put our guiding principles in place first. And those are out there. We built philosophies for everything that we'd like to do, whether that's our design philosophy, our supplier philosophy, our management philosophy, all of those are written down in it's called our living constitution, which is our formal document that guides us and shows us where we're supposed to be going, how to make good decisions, and why it's important. So we took that and said, all right, this is who we are. We're going to stick to it. The mission will always be fluid, I believe. Kind of being authentic with that is keep reading the world. If something needs to change and we're better suited to provide that, then that's where we're going to pivot to. We're going to go ahead and take that. It might not always be housing. It might not always be climate change. I hope that we solve this problem quickly. We'll have to figure out something else there, or see what other larger problem pops up for us to kind of tackle. And I think that's where we stand as a company. And then I kind of embody that as well, being transparent with everybody, whether that's people, employees, the media, podcasts, anything like that. We're very open book about a lot of things, and here's our flaws, here's what's good, and this is what we're trying to work on. And the only thing we're aiming for is the best that we possibly can be. And I think that's all you can really do in life and ask others for, is to do the same thing.
Creates trust.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, I was going to say those two things. But just to add on top of those, with being transparent, people are going to hold us to a higher standard with having the we're sustainable aspect on our company. Okay. They're going to say, oh, they're not vegans. How is that sustainable? Or their cars aren't electric. How are they sustainable? Or Sean lives in a 1,600 square foot home. How is that sustainable? Well, we're not the only people living in these houses. We are decreasing our footprint by having several people under one roof, or, and just being transparent with the fact that we aren't perfect, and my dog is on a raw diet. I have to separate his food into Ziploc bags. Ziploc bags are an issue for me, and I am a sustainability coordinator, but on different aspects of my life, I'm way more sustainable. I'm not buying meat from the grocery store. I'm literally only harvesting it myself. And then, staying true to yourself and your values, and, your values, how far are you willing to be inconvenienced with being sustainable? Because ultimately it's an inconvenience. It's not easy to be sustainable. It is not fast to be sustainable. You can't just stop at a fast food place and ask for the sustainable option of their number 5,
Yet. Maybe one day.
Yeah, maybe one day. But right now, it's still going to come with a styrofoam cup that's supersized. So it's just, how far are you willing to be inconvenienced to stay true to those values? Are you going to pack your snacks and take them with you? Are you going to pay a little bit extra for your flight to get the more sustainable airline? Are you going to add on the CO2 emission offset or those type of things? And just understanding that there's going to be hiccups, and accepting those hiccups.
I love that as an answer for both authenticity as well as just finding the core values that are most important to you. How much inconvenience are you willing to accept to make that happen? That's a great
point. Yeah, that is a great point. Yep.
Thank you guys so much for
inconvenient.
joining. Sorry, did you say?
Oh, that following values is inconvenient.
Yeah.
I could accept the job for the paycheck, but it goes against my values.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or, people who are extremely religious, sometimes that is not convenient for them because it's hard in certain aspects of their life. But staying true to you and staying true to that value, by all means, do it. It'll show you, it'll show you how important it actually is to you.
So where do people find you guys if they want to get in touch, get a van, just learn more about you?
So So we have an Instagram, Simply Tiny Dev. We have a Facebook page, Simply Tiny Development. Our website is simplytinydevelopment.com. So those are our trying to get our blog isn't quite ready. I'm working on that. But yeah, those are our 3 sources. Our contact information is all over all of those. And yeah, we're slowly trying to build our range in the people that we're meeting and seeing us. And even if they can't support, buying a van or buying a house, they can do other things like learn how to be more sustainable, so we can't do it by ourselves.
Awesome. Well, we'll add all those in our episode notes so people can find
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you guys so much again for joining. It's just truly interesting to see sustainability come to life, and you guys do a great job of just living it fully.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. I love the 360 sustainability. It's not just about recycling, it's about everything else too.
Farthest thing from
it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Trying to get reuse in there more is it's like a hard way to train your brain because you're so used to recycling first. And it's like, no, how can we reuse this before recycling it? How can we get that one more point in there before it's kind of ish done?
And one of my favorite things you said, Megan, was like, how do you sustain your soul? Figuring that out, because everything else is much harder if you can't figure that out first.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's probably the hardest part. Once you figure that out, you're set. Because the biggest part of me trying to get to where I am now is I got to make the most money ever. I gotta get a job that's going to pay 6+ figures. And, half the time those jobs they're not that great. They're not fun. And they require a lot of work and sitting at a desk and no sunlight. And by the time I realized, like, I'm going to put money out the window and see what I really want to do, then Sean happened. And I was like, I can have both. Like, I can save the world and not be broke. Like, this is great. There's room for growth in this career too. Cool.
Can I work with you guys? Sorry.
Sure. Come on.
Open.
Well, thank you again. Really appreciate your time.
So much.
Absolutely. Thank you guys.
Yeah. And thanks everyone for listening.